The Apartment Gurus podcast is brought to you by Greenlight Equity Group, an apartment acquisitions and holdings firm co-founded by Carl York and Tate Siemer, host of this show. We offer you the opportunity to be an owner of cash-flowing, wealth-growing apartments without the headaches of being a landlord. These assets are recession-resistant, risk-mitigated, offer significant tax advantages, and are a great alternative to the stock market. Ready to check it out? Go to www.investwithgreenlight.com today to book a personal consultation with Carl or Tate. Again, that's investwithgreenlight.com. We look forward to meeting you. Welcome to The Apartment Gurus, where twice a week, host Tate Siemer brings you deep dive interviews with the wisest gurus in the apartment investing industry. These experts are sure to create game-changing value and inspiration designed to catapult your business to the next level. Be sure to reach out to Tate at www.investwithgreenlight.com for access to his investor portal and Calendly link. And now, here is Tate Siemer and the Apartment Gurus.
Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of the Apartment Gurus podcast, and continuing in a series here of colleagues and guests coming from my Raise Masters mastermind that I joined in January, and we've talked about it on past shows. But Raise Masters is a paid mastermind group that I'm a part of that focuses on capital raising, and there are over 430 to be exact, kind of high level capital raisers in this group. And everybody's raising capital for commercial real estate deals, most of the time multifamily. So there's a heavy, strong focus in that. And I've met a lot of people through the group and expanded my network massively. We've gotten deals done through this group already, through partners and resources we've established. So, guys, your network is your net worth, right? We say that all the time, and it's so true. And expanding your network through a paid mastermind, whether it's something like my group, Multifamily Octane, which is a small mastermind that is very intimate, focuses on the active sponsor role, or capital raising. Raise Masters would be a good option. There's great options out there. Whatever one resonates with you, I highly recommend that if you're committed to the business, not just curious about the business, that you really, you throw down, quite frankly, and put your money where your mouth is, and make these networks happen for yourself, because that's where all of these deals get done. So on that, really excited today to have Mack Benson on with me from the Raise Masters group. That's how we've connected. Mack just recently got his first deal done, and I love these first deal episodes because, guys, Michael Blanc got it right. That law of the first deal thing is real. The first deal is hard to get done. It's the hardest deal likely that you'll ever do, because it's the first time you're doing a whole bunch of different things. And so as Max said, we were talking before the recording here, as Max said, he's learned more, but just through this one deal, than probably a lot of syndicators have over a 10-year period in a positive growth cycle, right? We've been in a rocky economy, interest rate environment, et cetera, over the last year and a half, at least now, as we all know, and first deals get even harder to do in those situations. So Mack, really glad to have you on the show, and really looking forward to hearing all about your adventures through your first deal.
Thanks, Tate. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. So just to start out with, give us a little color into Mack Benson and what, kind of where you came from, what your professional background, and really like how you got into real estate. What's your real estate story?
Well, I'd like to say that I took a direct path out of school and went right into real estate, but that definitely didn't happen. Read that little purple book, Rich Dad Poor Dad.
The purple book. Yeah, absolutely.
The impetus for many of us to start into real estate. I read that first back in probably 2001 or 2002 when I was in college the first time.
Yeah.
And didn't do anything with it. I basically listened to the network that I had, and they said, well, you need to come up with 20% down, which I didn't even have for a house. So I said, well, guess I'm not going to go into real estate, and then just went into the work world.
Yep. W-2 space, right? Where was your W-2?
Well, the college degree in 2001, if you remember what was going on back then, my degree was in computer networking.
Yep. That's
which 2001
dot-com boom, right?
Yep. The dot-com boom. Well, the dot-com burst.
Yeah. Boom and burst, right? Yeah.
Yeah. While I was in school, the help wanted section in the local paper went from its own section for IT down to about a column in the classifieds.
Yeah.
And at that point, everybody was able to say, hey, minimum 5 years required, 5 years experience required. So a guy right out of college is not going to break into that. So I started working in a warehouse.
Gotcha. Okay. So take us from there. What you read, by the way, we kind of glazed over the purple book. For listeners that may not know what we're talking about, that's of course Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, which is a huge inspiration for so many of us, and I think for so many guests. I mean, just a massive percentage of guests, when you hear their real estate story, that book is foundational in a lot of for a lot of people in terms of introducing them to the idea of owning cash flowing assets and assets that appreciate, right? And are cash flowing. And that's quite a different proposition than a W-2 or really any other way of making money. So yeah, it's such a common thing for people to kind of get that seed planted by the purple book, as we call it. And so that's cool that you had that in your background, but you went to work, you went into the W-2 space. What happened from there?
Yeah. And I mean, I spent 12 years with that company, moving from keep climbing the ladder. And I got to the point where I realized I really can't go any higher than I am without some changes. And then I looked around and said, you know what? I don't want to go any higher than I am. I see what they're doing, and that is not appealing to me at all. One of the jokes that my manager made at the time was that, you know, we only have to work half days. Which 12 hours is your choice?
Oops. Yeah. That doesn't sound like something you want to stick around for, does it?
Yeah. So fast forward to 2010, I had gone back to college. Again, the IT didn't work out, so let's try something else. Ended up with a degree in applied mathematics in 2015, got a different job in 2016 for a multi-regional bank in IT, believe it or not. So almost came full circle. But at that time, I had just had my first child. And I mean, when you have your first kid, your self-care goes out the window, and it's all, okay, I have work, I have school, I've got this little human being that I'm trying my best to keep alive.
Right.
And we just forget all about ourselves. A couple years later, I looked in the mirror and realized, you know what? I don't really like what I see, and knew that I needed to make a change. And at that point, like, okay, so I still have the school, I've got work, I've got the kid. I don't have a full day to spend at the gym. What else can I do? And just changed what I was eating. And I stumbled upon that because I was listening to a podcast that turned me on to a different podcast. And the guy just started talking about things that really resonated with me. I was like, you know what? I'll try it out. And from his podcast, then I started listening to other podcasts, and my podcast library started exploding. And then I got into self-development. I'm like, okay, you know what? I want to be a better father for my child. I want to be able to be here longer. And this one was about self-development. And he had a guest on that I remember I was on an afternoon walk during my lunch break, and he came on, and he was a surgeon, and he was making more with his side hustle than he was as a surgeon. And his side hustle happened to be apartment syndication. Well, what is that? And I started looking into it, Googling, and okay, so he buys apartments. How does he buy apartments? And he's a surgeon. Okay, he has a lot of money, but then he starts talking about using other people's money. Wait, okay, that's a thing? How does all this work? Then you dive down the Google hole and you say, okay, you know what? This might actually be possible. And then break out the little purple book again 15 years later and go through that and just suck down as much information as you can, like drinking through a fire hose.
Yep. So what year was that? Was that right after 2010 or?
No, that was 2018.
2018. Okay.
It took me a while. My first child was born in 2014 and she was 4. I was about to get married, or I had just gotten married. I told my wife it was either before or after.
Well,
but she gave me the green light to start looking at apartments.
Cool.
And I mean, that was a long road because obviously when you dive down the Google hole of real estate investment, there's one specific website that keeps popping up almost no matter what you search for.
Yeah.
And it's that one called Bigger Pockets.
That's right. Yep.
And that can definitely lead to shiny object syndrome, where you're like, back then it was one episode a week. So let's go after the flavor of the week. What are they talking about this week? Okay. So it's small, a duplex.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, okay, house hacking is not the question because I've got a white kid that's about to go into school. I need to be in a decent school district. So that's what I'm mainly focused on. So can't do the house hack. What else can we do? Oh, let's try flipping. Oh, let's try wholesaling. Let's do direct mail, and just spinning the wheels until 12 months into that, you go, okay, I haven't done a damn thing. What? I either need to figure out what I'm doing or quit. And I wasn't willing to quit. I had met way too many people that had already seen success. I'm like, if they can do it, I can do it too. I just need to figure out how.
Success leaves clues, right? The whole Tony Robbins idea. Yeah. So, I mean, that's just it. First of all, highlight number one, you didn't quit, right? Like you can't fail if you don't quit, because if you're not quitting, you're going until you succeed, ultimately, right? If you just keep going. And then this whole concept of like, if they can do it, I can do it. That to me is huge. Like as an entrepreneur, it really is helpful and almost essential, in my opinion, to have that kind of self-belief that as long as that guy, number one, can do it, and number one, I can either watch him do it or he can teach me how to do it or whatever, then I can do it. Right. I think that is such a valuable way to think, right? Like that we're all human beings. We all have our hangups. We all have limiting beliefs. We all have either some experience or lack of experience, or, we all start from scratch at some point. So like, to me, that's just the name of the game. And your belief and your resourcefulness, I think, is key as anything else in this business. So,
yeah. And I mean, we all have the reasons that we can't do something.
Right.
I mean, I had enough reasons, and it's still something that I battle with or struggle with on a daily basis. Well, I can't do that because X, Y, Z.
Yep.
And if I need to do it is high enough, I mean, those can'ts have to go away.
Yeah. Well said. Cool. So 2019, you did it for a year. Sounds like you were kind of, the one thing, first of all, I'm sure most of the listeners have heard of Bigger Pockets. If you haven't, check it out. I will say this about Bigger Pockets. It's a wonderful network, wonderful resource set. And they do touch a lot on multifamily, but it's not exclusively multifamily by any stretch of the imagination. And I would say, if anything, there's probably a little more focus on the single family space and the small multi space and the Airbnb space. But regardless, it's certainly worth knowing about and being a part of, in my opinion. So where did you go from there?
Yeah, from there, in May of 2019, our second kid was born.
Okay.
And at the time, I had given up on pretty much everything, and I was trying to do direct mail wholesaling. Figured, you know what? If I can't find a good property to flip, if I can't find a good property to burr, then wholesaling is going to be my next option.
Right.
And sitting there with a baby that won't sleep and trying to stuff envelopes by hand and hand address them, stick them in the mail. And then, okay, lo and behold, I get a call from one of the letters, and all right, well, now I need to get out to that house to look at it. It wasn't sustainable. So I had just happened to meet a guy at a local meetup, which is something I continued to do. I found one that I really liked and kept going there. And I mean, to me, he was just a kid who had already quit his highly successful W-2 job to pursue multifamily full time. Like, you know what? How did you do that when you're 22 years old? It doesn't make sense. And we had a couple calls, got to know each other, and it turned out he had joined a mentorship program. Like, okay, so tell me more. And then I explored options and interviewed a couple potential mentorship programs and decided on one and jumped in full steam.
Yeah. Awesome. Do you mind me asking what mentorship program that was?
Wheelbarrow Profits.
Yeah.
Jake and Gino.
Jake and Gino. Love Jake and Gino. I love Gino. Gino's been on the show. What a great guy. Just great human being. And by the way, listeners, I've mentioned this before. I have a resource list. One of the things on the list and I'm happy to email this to you, are the 3 conferences that I think you should go to every year. Jake and Gino's conference called Money Mastery, which I believe this year is in October, is one of those conferences. It's in Orlando, and it is top notch. It's a top notch conference. These national conferences are game changing. The people that you meet, the knowledge that you get, can really, really change the course of your business. So, I was wondering if you had a mentorship in your history there, because I hardly ever have a guest on that I just figured it out. I just like read books and listened to podcasts and found a deal and found dollars and got a deal done. Like, it's hardly ever like that. There's always some kind of mentor, or whether it's an informal, unpaid mentor, coach, or usually a paid mentorship, paid mastermind, paid one-on-one coach. That's usually like the guy sitting and gal sitting on the other side of the microphone here. That's usually what they've done. And that's, the way to success, in my opinion. So how instrumental was that for you, Wheelbarrow Profits?
Maybe a bit of foreshadowing, but when I did close on my first deal, so we tried to syndicate it, but ended up on a 5-person joint venture. All 5 people came from Jake and Gino.
There you go. Right. I mean, you got your first deal done because of that mentorship. That's awesome. That's awesome. So, okay. So let's talk about that first deal. How'd you find it? How did it come? How did it enter your life? And then let's talk about how you got it done.
It was another very laser straight path from joining Jake and Gino to getting that deal, which is entirely false.
I was going to say that. I bet you I sensed some sarcasm there. Okay. So it was an indirect path. All right. I got it.
Yeah. So I had joined them summer of 2019. And again, I was filled with can'ts. I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm afraid to. One of my biggest hangups was I'm afraid to call brokers. They're not going to take me serious. I'm going to sound like an idiot. Like, okay, I had already gone through all the training. I had read Joe Fairless's book. I knew the information. Yeah. I mean, I had been on Bigger Pockets almost daily for probably 2 years at that point. Like I knew my stuff, but I didn't have the confidence. And the reason I didn't have the confidence is I had never done it. So it was just, it was this unknown that was hanging out over my head, which the fear of the unknown prevented me from doing it. And then with a couple swift kicks in the butt from the community or the group, started making my first calls and completely flamed out on my very first one, which the broker's response is, well, based on what you're telling me, you shouldn't be looking here. You should be looking some other state that he mentioned, which I don't even remember.
No kidding, huh?
It's like, oh man, I thought we did really good. All right, I guess not. So, but I realized, you know what? That was simple enough. It didn't matter. And I can move on. And then
good for you. That's great.
I had looked up all the brokers in my local market and just kept pounding the doors. It was winter and I'm in Minnesota. So really nothing happens in the winter here. But it was really good practice and really good confidence builder to call the brokers every 2 weeks to see if they had anything in the pipeline. The answer was always no, but I was staying on the radar, which brought us to the very first property I got to walk was February of 2020. Remember it very well because I got the call from the broker while my wife and I were in Puerto Rico on a cruise. Like, well, I can't walk it this week, but I'll be back in a couple weeks.
Yeah. What market was that? Was the property in?
Minneapolis, St. Paul, Twin Cities.
Okay. Yeah. So your home market.
Yep.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And so I like probably 90% of people that get into the multifamily space when they start analyzing markets, they're like, well, I want to be in Florida or I want to be in Texas. For me, it was Florida. And after my very first trip to Florida, when things did not go well at home with my wife, I realized I cannot travel to Florida. So I need to look closer to home. So got back after our cruise, walked the property. Like, you know what? This might actually work out. So, crunched the numbers, worked with one of my coaches and submitted an offer and did not sleep that night.
Wow. Okay.
Like, okay, so I'm nervous about putting an offer in on a house for my family at $300,000. I just sent a broker an offer for a 112 unit apartment portfolio for $11.5 million. Where am I going to come up with $6 million?
Right. Which is what the equity requirement is for the down payment, your fees, your closing costs, right? Yep.
And CapEx.
And CapEx. Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm going, and it was the fear of, okay, well, crap, now it's in. What if they say yes? What do I do next? So a couple days later, when I got the call from the broker and he said, well, we like your offer and we'd like to invite you to best and final. Well, crap, what does that even mean?
Yep.
He goes, I need you to sharpen your pencil and see what you can do. And then I did that, sent it in, and before they could make a decision, the world shut down.
Ah, right.
And the broker pulled all their deals from the market. The debt markets were crazy. And I should specify the world shut down because of COVID.
Right. Yeah. I remember it so well. We were at the end of a deal. We were under contract on a deal that the lender pulled the funding on. And that initial panic, like, caused a massive disruption on just about every deal that was in the works. And then everything settled down and we had the best year in multifamily ever in 2021, which nobody saw coming, but whatever, right? Like, so,
yeah.
Okay. So you lost that deal, sounds like.
Not yet, because
okay.
All they did was table everything. They said, we're going to take a time out. We're going to pause. We're not going to accept any offers. We're not going to do anything. We're going to figure out what this debt market is doing, and we'll come back when we can. And when we can happened to be over the summer. But by summer of 2020, the agency lenders, which, I mean, we're looking at close to a $12 million purchase price, which it's definitely going to go into agency debt if possible. And the agency lenders at the time had that really wonky principal and interest escrow requirement.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have, 6 months of debt service payments in an escrow account at close.
Right.
Okay. So that, if I do my regular model, I mean, that's just going to completely destroy my return profile, which is going to really make a raise difficult, especially being my first raise.
And it's more money that you have to raise because of the reserves, right? Yep. So,
I mean, my offer went down. I lowered my offer to match what the debt requirements were. Didn't get it. Moved on with my life.
Got it. Okay.
Walked as many properties with as many brokers as I could. But here's the kicker. I was still doing everything by myself.
Okay. Yep.
I was walking everything by myself. I mean, I joined a group so I could meet people, so I could build my network, but I kept doing it by myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I half learned what I needed to, but not this other part of it's a team sport.
Mm-hmm.
And then another kid was born that December. And by February, number three.
Is that are you up to 3 now? Is that your count, your tally?
That's it. That's the younger two are 18 months apart.
Yeah. Wow. My brother and I were 18 months apart. That can be interesting. Sibling rivalry, right?
Yep. It's brother and sister. So
okay.
There's definitely a dynamic there.
Yeah.
Especially with the younger one wanting to do everything the older one does.
Right.
Yeah. And she was pretty colicky, and it made everything really difficult. What was she, about a month old, and I got my first accepted offer. The deal didn't work out. And then I realized, okay, I need to look at these deals with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I can't keep doing all this by myself. And had met a guy in Jake and Gino, and he's lived pretty close to me, and we kind of hit it off. He was doing his thing. I was doing my thing. And then I had posted about the deal that I had the accepted offer for. And he proposed that we start looking at deals together, which we did. And the very first offer that we put in, we were just a hair's breadth away from it being accepted.
Mm-hmm.
The seller actually took an additional week from when he had committed to making a decision because he was weighing ours versus the one he ended up going with. So that was proof of concept. We're like, you know what? This might actually work out. So we kept looking at deals. And then maybe a month later, he called me up and said, "Hey, can you be in Minneapolis by 5:00 today?" Yeah. I guess.
Where were you at this point?
Suburb of St. Paul. So like a half hour, but
yeah.
I'm like, well, getting across town, I got to leave work early. I got to get across town. I don't know, but I'll figure it out. Because what he was doing, he had been doing a direct to seller texting campaign.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
And this seller they had texted him about a different property. He said, well, I'm not interested in selling that one, but I'm currently building a 40 unit if you want to come look at it today. All right, so it's under construction. It's in Minneapolis, and yeah, let's go look at it. Mm-hmm. If nothing else, it'll be a good experience. Mm-hmm. I mean, how many operators are walking into something? When we walked in, it had 2x4s on the first floor and a couple of pieces of sheetrock on the third.
Wow. Okay.
Otherwise, it was a shell.
Shell, yeah. Got it.
So, yeah, we looked at it and we did some napkin math in the back parking lot. Like, you know what he wants for this, it might actually work out. Let's dive into the numbers some more and take a closer look, which we took the weekend, sent him an offer on Monday, and he called back within an hour and accepted it.
Wow. And okay. Didn't even counter it. He just straight up accepted your offer.
No, yeah. So he was actually living in the house next door. And after we took a look at it, we walked into his house, met his wife, and he sat down with us, and he had another offer that he was ready to accept, but didn't quite want to. And he actually showed it to us.
So you knew where you stood kind of then.
Yep. He said, if you offer me this, I will accept it and throw in the next door property. Like, all right, let's see if we can work this out.
Wow.
So nice. We offered him what he was looking for, and off to the races we went.
Nice. So talk about the contract to close process in that deal. What was that like?
Another straight line.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So new construction in 2021, supply chain issues, people not wanting to work
right
because COVID still, city backed up with paperwork and bureaucratic stuff.
Yeah.
We were supposed to have the certificate. He was supposed to have the certificate of occupancy by the middle of July. Construction was supposed to wrap at the 1st of July. And we knew that wasn't happening. So we were still targeting an August 1st close, which that would give us about 6 weeks to get all we were going to syndicate it. So we needed to get all of our SEC paperwork started, finished, and we needed to complete our raise, which we were estimating about 2.2. And all that needed to be done by the 1st of August. So, I mean, we busted our humps and got things rolling, had all the PPM and all the paperwork drawn up, but the close date was kind of a question mark. We just weren't sure, and we were there on site monitoring the build progress, and things weren't looking like they were going to be done when he expected them to be done. And we said, okay, so the August 1st isn't going to happen. Let's look for September 1st. And we ended up starting to have weekly meetings with him to update on any issues he has with the city, the architect, the 15 different organizations that need to inspect the property. And if he needs any help, what we can do, just to get things to track. And during a couple of the calls, he had brought up something called a contract for deed. Like, okay, you know what? No, we're going to syndicate it. We've got it covered. Well, we're not looking for a contract for deed. And then probably 3 weeks of us refusing, we finally said, okay, what does this look like? And he laid out the terms of, and contract for deed is another term for seller financing. And we're like, okay, what are the terms? What exactly are you proposing? And he laid everything out. We're like, oh crap, that sounds actually really good. Like, give us the weekend. We're going to take this back to our model, run through some numbers, and see if it's going to work out. And So for syndication, you give away a lot of the deal to the LPs. Obviously,
Right.
they're putting up the capital.
Right.
They get the return. For a joint venture, you keep it all. And we're like, okay, so this works out a lot better for us if we do it as a JV rather than a syndication. But
you're still having to give away part of the deal to your JVs,
yep.
right? So how does that work?
Yeah. So we were looking at for the conventional financing, our down payment would have been like 1.6. Our raise would have been about 2. And for the JV, he was looking for $800K down. Like, okay, so
Got it.
in our network, can we find people that can pull together $800K? And then we'll need operating funds. And answer was yes. We ended up finding our key principal that was going to sign on the loan also had a 1031 he needed to place, that we weren't interested in a syndication, but we could do it for a JV. Like, you know what? Let's do it. So I had to figure out how to bring a 1031 into a seller finance deal on contract for deed and then tear up all the syndication paperwork and light that 10 grand on fire.
How is that legal, Bill? Had to have been healthy.
Oh, I think we ended up over $60K after close for
Amazing.
all attorney's fees.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the attorney that we had, she didn't know anything about Minnesota contract for deed law. And she also didn't know anything about 1031. So like, all right, take that one and let's go find a new one that's local that knows Minnesota contract for deed law, because it needs to be very specific, but they also need to know 1031.
Yeah.
Because above all else, we need to protect that 1031. That's that family's entire life savings. Well, okay, it was a very large 1031 and we were just a small chunk of it, but still. Yeah. So we were expecting August 1st close, then a September 1st, and then October. Ended up finally closing December 28th.
Okay. A straight line, right? That's how it goes. Yeah. I mean, the 4 years that I've been around the business and the deals we've done, the deals that my clients have done, and all the people I know, I can't even. The closest thing to a straight line we've ever done was a joint venture where we found a deal, gave it to a group with deep pockets. They closed it, and that was it. Like we were JVs. That is the only straight line deal we've ever done. Everything else has been anything but a straight line. So, delays in closings, hangups, like that happens more often than not, I think, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, we were close to the end of our time on the contract to be able to close, just because we had to figure out how to position this 1031, that they get everything safe on the 1031, but we keep our equity. And it was really complicated. But then right before the end of our 60 days, we found out that as-built survey was never done, and phase one was never done.
Oh, wow.
All right. So our plan is to refinance this into agency debt. We're going to need a phase one. It needs to be done. So more delays for that.
Right. Yep. It happens, man. The stuff just gets hung up, and this isn't for the faint of heart, is it, Mack?
Not at all. I mean, 6 months after we closed, we had a fire on the 3rd floor.
Wow.
Knocked out that unit and 3 of them below, plus all 3 hallways with
holy cow.
Water.
Unreal. Wow. That's significant. Did you guys do okay through that? How did you navigate that one?
Painfully.
Yeah. Insurance and everything else, right?
Yep. Insurance, remediation. We're
contractors.
Yeah. We're that was 2022. That was over a year ago, and we're still working through the process.
Wow.
But we also had another incident in September with somebody not happy and knocking a sprinkler head off. So there's your second claim in 3 months. luckily the work hadn't been completed for the first claim. So
unbelievable. So you got it done, Mack. Good job, man.
Sure did. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. What, through this whole progression from the first deal, the 140-ish unit, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, to closing that first deal that you got done. I mean, what did you learn? What ahas were there? What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about life? Like, give me the goods on that.
One of the main things I learned is that I can't do it by myself.
Good. It's so valuable. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm a DIY guy. Right?
Yeah.
I'm driving around a rickety 2002 F-150. What the last thing I did, I fixed my air conditioning. And before that, I replaced a wheel bearing.
Wow. Yeah. I'm really good at fixing that kind of stuff too. I pick up my phone, I use my fingers and call somebody. That's what I do.
Yeah.
I'm the exact opposite of handy. Luckily, my business partner, Carl, is as mechanical as they come. He's as DIY as they come, and I'm not. So we're a good match, but okay. So you learn you can't do it yourself. It's a team sport. And once you teamed up, like you guys had success.
Yeah. I mean, I was doing it by myself, from 2018 up until 2021. So 3 years. And it took 3 months of being partnered with somebody to get my first deal.
I love that.
3 years by myself with zero. 3 months with somebody else.
Listeners, there you go.
44 units.
Less than 10% of the time. You team up with somebody, you partner up, and it shrunk Mack's timeline down by 90-ish%. Like, that's huge, guys. That's a huge takeaway, Mack. Good one.
Thank you.
Anything else come up for you? And for me, like, I when we go through stuff like that, and we just went through a tough close, man. Our Lawton project was just a beast to get to the finish line. One of the smallest deals we've ever done, and it was the hardest deal probably that we've ever done. And I find that, when the proverbial stuff is hitting the fan and like things feel out of control, and you're not sure how it's going to work out, and you've got earnest money on the line that maybe you might be looking at losing and stuff like that. Like, I learn a lot about myself, man. It's like, I learn where my strengths are as far as like chaos and stress management. And I learn where my weaknesses are in that regard. And so, like you mentioned self-development off the top. And to me, this game, and I do think of it as a game. I love it. I love it like a game. It requires that, man. It requires self-development, bro. Like I'm so aligned with you on that, because I think that being an entrepreneur, the level of success that you're going to have is the level of success that you have with yourself, like on an inner level. If you got that part of your life and that part of your world worked out, your inner game, then that is going to translate so beautifully to your success and entrepreneurialism. So that really resonated with me. I don't know if did you feel like you developed any coping skills, if nothing else, through the whole process?
Yeah, so I still don't drink. Stopped that in 2009. So I haven't picked up that coping skill. But one thing that I've focused on, especially more since I started into the focusing on real estate, is my personal health.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were talking about that before we started recording. And while we're running up against the time here a little bit, I'd love to hear a little bit about your perspective and your take on your personal health and real estate.
Yeah. I mean, I got into real estate for my family, and I got into real estate because I was focusing on my health. So to me, they're really intertwined. And then when I dive into it deeper, I realize for me to be the best dad I can be, and to be the best husband I can be, more importantly, because, okay, I'm going to be a dad for the rest of my life, but
Yeah.
My wife is going to be around, God willing, and her willing, after the kids are out of the house. So
sure. Yeah. Well said.
Doing everything I can right now to make that as long as possible. So how do I be a father to my children for as long as I possibly can? Meaning, how do I be healthy? Because if I'm not healthy, I cannot be a good father. And frankly, if I'm not healthy, I'm not going to be around long enough to be a father for long.
I didn't make the connection until you just said it, that you found real estate through your pursuit of health. But then when I thought back through the story, I'm like, yeah, he was listening to a podcast about health, and the guy happened to be a surgeon or a doctor making money through real estate syndication. How freaking cool is that, man? Like, that's awesome.
I looked back, and it was the only interview that podcast host had about real estate. And I think he had something like 150, 250 episodes before he hung it up.
Wow. That's amazing. That's so cool. I love that you were already taking care of a part of you, a part of your world, your health, your physical health. And by pursuing that part of your well-being, this whole new piece comes in that now is your life, and you're passionate about it, and you've got a deal done, you've got networks, you got a team member or team members, right? So it kind of begs, like, one of my last two questions for you. So where do you go from here? What's next for you?
I'd say bigger, but that would actually fly in the face of one of the things I firmly believe is that to be comparing yourself to somebody else is a complete disservice. You need to follow your own path to say more deals, more units, help more people.
Yeah. You joined Raise Masters. When did you join Raise Masters? How long ago?
Is it January or February?
Me too. Yeah. I joined in January after Raise Fest, which I went to.
I was there too.
Yeah. Cool. And how's your capital raising game changed since Raise Masters?
I've started building a lot more processes, a lot more systems and automations. So utilizing the active campaign. I already had a website. I made a lot of changes to that based on the feedback from the coaches. And I continued to iterate there.
Nice.
Then I blew up my initial automation and started over.
Got it. Yeah. Understood. We're always reinventing yourself, right? All right. So last question I want to ask you is, you had your first kid in 2014, you said?
Yep.
And let's go back to like that 2010-ish time frame when you went back to school. How cool would it be to be able to do this? But if you could go back in time and coach that person, that guy, knowing what you know now, what would you tell him?
Get out of autoglass now. Stop slinging windshields.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, was there any reason back then, if you could have coached yourself to do that, would you have done it? Do you think? I mean, yeah, you just weren't ready yet. Yeah.
No, I wasn't who I am now. And I am who I am now because of what I've done and what I've done through.
Yeah.
That's a age-old question. If you could go back and change anything.
I know. Yeah.
I can't think of anything I would because I don't know who I would be. And I mean, I kind of like who I am.
I love
Not to sound arrogant, but
no, that doesn't sound arrogant to me. That sounds authentic. And I think, an authentic sense of love for yourself and like for yourself is anything but arrogant. It's because if you love yourself authentically, and not to get like spiritual and psychological here, but you've got it to give to other people at that point, right? Like if you've got that for yourself and you've got that peace and happiness and fulfillment going on inside, you've got so much more to offer the world, your family, your kids, your wife, your business partners, your residents, your tenants, your investors. Like that's where it's at, in my opinion. It's that, when you said self-development in the first 5 minutes of the recording, the first thing I thought of is the 6 inches between your ears. That's the most important real estate to develop, right? 6 inches between your ears. So yeah, self-development's so key. Well, Mack, this has been awesome. Really, really enlightening. Totally enjoyed your story. And, I'm here for you. We're part of the same team, and please keep me posted and let me know how we can, at Greenlight, can be helpful in your path to success. One other random question. Are you still looking just in the Minneapolis markets? Or are you expanded out anywhere?
Oh, not to drag this on, but I am not looking at all in Minnesota. And okay. I don't know if I ever will again.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll be somewhere south and warmer.
Yeah. You got it. Understood. That's kind of an overall strategy with most investors. So understood. Well, Mack, thanks a ton. This has been awesome. Really appreciate you.
Thank you, Tate.
Yeah. Listeners, hope you got a lot out of that. Mack Nelson's our guest, and really appreciate everything. Or Mack Benson, sorry, is our guest, and appreciate everything you brought, Mack, to the show. Listeners, appreciate you listening. Love you guys. You're the reason why Mack and I do what we do and took the time to record this. And we just hope that you get a lot out of it. Mack, if listeners want to reach out to you, what is the best way for them to reach you?
Probably my website, infinitefocuscapital.com.
Infinitefocuscapital.com. Perfect. So Mack Benson, everybody, are you on the socials?
I am. Mack Benson official, most places.
Okay, cool. Great. Well, guys, that's the end of another episode here, and we appreciate you being a part of this. As always, you make this worth doing and make it really meaningful. So hope you all have just a great rest of your work day, whatever you're up to today. If you're on the treadmill right now or driving, be safe. Love you guys. See you on the next episode. Take care, everybody.
This has been the Apartment Gurus with Tate Siemer. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. To contact Tate, go to www.investwithgreenlight.com for access to his investor portal and Calendly link. He loves to hear from you and thanks you for being a valued listener. Just a reminder that you are the guru. See you on the next episode of the Apartment Gurus.